Today's February 7th, 2025. Current Bitcoin price is $96,623.
Welcome to the BitBite podcast, your source for news and information about Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency space. This podcast is meant for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not financial advice.
Man, this roller coaster just does not stop, Rick.
Hey, we were talking about the last episode that sometimes it goes up, but sometimes it really goes down.
We have been, and so what now we're looking probably at about 3 months now, or just about 3 months, that we've been range bound between somewhere between 110, well, can't say 110 yet. We've gotten up to like 108, I think, thousand. And 90,000 seems to be like the bottom barrier. So we're kind of bouncing around in there for the past basically 3 months now.
Yeah, but do you imagine how greedy that sounds compared to before the election?
Oh, I know. And it's one of those things in crypto. Like a week in Bitcoin is like a month in regular markets, you know?
Yep. Well, I'll tell you this, following crypto ages you in dog years.
Yeah, you are absolutely not wrong. But, and I think we've talked about this before on the podcast too. Like if you're going to make gains in Bitcoin, because I think a lot of people are they're starting to throw up their hands. They're capitulating. They're selling off their stash. And they're just like, it's this bull market, nothing's happening. It's like, the reason why you have to hold in Bitcoin is because it moves on certain days. And when it moves violently. And if you're not there, you miss the boat.
Right. Well, still, even this, what was the low this week? Did it get down to close to 90?
Low of this week, let's see, what day is this? Okay, so the lowest we were, I'm looking at the chart here, was on February 3rd, which was Monday. We got down to 91,495. That's as low as we've gotten. And then we springboard back up to 102,577, came back down to like 96. Today we got up to 100,000 again and then came back down to 95. So, we're range bound again.
Yeah. Granted, 101 to 95, that's pretty rough within one day. Like, most other stocks and stuff, if you're following that, they just don't do those kind of numbers. And Bitcoin is doing Bitcoin things. And even with the drawdown we've seen, we should almost expect more from previous cycles. Like this is nothing.
Yeah. No, absolutely. We've yet to see, I think, one of those 30% corrections this cycle so far as what we've seen in the past. But I think, honestly, at the same time, too, we're trading a lot more sideways for longer, which maybe that's mitigating some of that, drastic pull down, but I'm not sure. I can't say one way or the other. How are we looking with our theoretical purchases?
Okay, theoretical purchase. Back in October 2023, if you put $3,000 down, you would have been able to purchase 0.0885 Bitcoin. And that $3,000 investment today is worth $85.51, which was almost $9,000 last episode. So we've lost $500 basically on that. The other purchase was right at the halving in 2024, which is on April 19th. And if you would have put $1,000, you would have ended up with 0.01564 Bitcoin. And that investment is now worth $15.11. So you're still up 50%.
Yeah. Either way, no matter how you slice that, we're still looking pretty good with those charts. Last time we recorded too, it was funny because we actually went back and looked at the chart itself. We recorded on the 27th and everything was looking really good with the pricing. Everything was looking pretty solid. We didn't have IBIT numbers at the time. We were like, I bet you they were explosive today, all that kind of stuff. Turns out it was actually a down day for Bitcoin. It lost almost 457 million that day in the ETFs. And
Well, you can't give us too much of a hard time because we predicted IBIT was going to be positive. It just wasn't positive enough to carry everything else up positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's kind of funny too, because we look at this and for the most part, it hasn't been awful days. We look at January 30th. What is that? 588 million that came in to the market that day. 31st, 318 million. It looks like we had a down day on the 3rd of February, which was 234 million. February 4th was 340 million. Yesterday looks like it was a down day of 140 million, which was funny. And we'll talk about this here in a second. I mean, I didn't want to go into it too much, but there was a big article that I saw where Fidelity had sold $104 million worth of Bitcoin, which, okay, I mean, it's a decent amount, but on like almost a $2 trillion asset, 103 million is nothing. And yeah, it's funny because I think the thing that stood out to me was that was on the 6th of February. And we go back in the charts just on January 27th, they sold way more than that, almost 3 times more than that. And there was nothing, not a word was said. So something's going on. The markets are getting manipulated for sure.
Well, and we know that the media is manipulated for sure. So you just don't trust anything that they say.
Yeah. Well, it depends on who's paying them. USAID's going to get cut, so maybe they'll start changing their tune.
Well, I mean, maybe they're just going to go out of business because they're not getting funded anymore. But whatever.
It's a good call. So yeah, it's been crazy. Like we have seen, if this had been any other bull cycle, and maybe I'm wrong, but if this had been any other bull cycle, like the amount of news that we've gotten has been consistently good news.
Yes. Well, let's start off. What are the good points that you're seeing that you think that Bitcoin should be much higher?
Well, so one of the first things is that obviously you have the United States talking about a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And they did mention it specifically. It was done by Sachs, is his last name. He made a press conference the other day, talked about it specifically, and that Trump was actually that was one of the first things Trump had asked them to do, was to go ahead and look at creating a strategic Bitcoin reserve. We've also got 6 other countries that are looking at it right now currently as well. So Czech Republic is one, Russia is another, Brazil, Germany, Hong Kong. They're all looking into strategic Bitcoin reserves. Countries that are doing this. The other thing that we have right now on the docket is we have 22 states in the United States looking to add Bitcoin to their reserves, as a strategic reserve for their states. I believe Utah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, the minimum that I've seen is about 5%, and some of them are looking at allocating up to 10%. So, I was kind of I asked one of the AI systems the other day, I was just like, okay, run a thought experiment. If these states all do this and they allocate a minimum of 5%, what does that do to the price? And so, they calculate the thing or whatever in the background. And I didn't do the number check. I don't know exactly how accurate it was because we know AI can lie. But it's like, well, Bitcoin would be $500,000 a coin. I said, well, what if the U.S. does it? Well, then you're looking at something a lot more astronomical, right?
Right.
I mean, it's crazy times. And I know how horrible it sounds to be like, well, 100,000 is kind of boring now. But we've been here for 3 months.
Boring.
6-figure Bitcoin's not enough. I need 7. No.
Well, here's the thing, though. If the United States government's getting involved in this, they're not going to play their hand and show everyone so they can buy Bitcoin at $500,000 per Bitcoin. They're going to try and keep it on the down low, and they're going to try and buy it sub 100,000, which is happening right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a feeling like if we got to look at those flows, and it happens every time when we see these pullbacks, those of you that are selling right now because you're like, oh, this thing is boring, I'm not making any money, or maybe you bought at the top, maybe you bought late, and now you're like, oh, this thing's a scam. If you are one of those that is selling right now, the people that are buying your Bitcoin, because the whales are still accumulating. Whoever those people are that we don't know who they are buying, that's who's accumulating. That's who you're selling your Bitcoin to, and they're getting it on the cheap.
Indeed.
Well, relatively cheap.
No, well, I mean, when we're looking 10 years from now and Bitcoin's at whatever price it's at, well over $1 million, I imagine 10 years from now.
Yeah. Oh, I'm guessing like 14 million a coin or something like that.
Well, let's just be conservative and chop that in half and say it's 7 million per coin.
Yeah.
I mean, 100 grand, our sub 100 grand, we're going to look at ourselves, we're going to go, that is so ridiculously on sale.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's wild times. It's a roller coaster ride, and I understand people get frustrated. And I think the people that really get frustrated are the people that are new to the market. The rest of us that have been here for a while, we're like, are you kidding? Like, what, 2 years ago, this was $15,000. Come on now. We got hurt pretty bad. Did it go down to 15? I want to say maybe it was 15, maybe 15.
Yeah, we touched 15 in 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we started
That was a
back
rough
up.
winter.
That was a rough winter. And I don't know, maybe, you know what the weird thing is too, is that we're still not seeing the action in the altcoins. Like, this is the one thing that's starting to break apart from typical cycles, is we're not seeing the altcoins move the way they normally do around this type of movement. Like, when Bitcoin is really kind of range bound like this, is when the altcoins typically would pump in the previous bull cycles.
Yeah.
And then would rotate back into Bitcoin, and it would pump higher, and then would go back down into the altcoins. And, it was kind of a little cycle like that for a little while. We're not seeing that with the altcoins this time.
No. And I'm not surprised.
I'm not either.
Here's the deal. Like, you and I are both, I mean, we're not against altcoins and all that stuff, but we're really Bitcoin. I'd say we're fairly Bitcoin maximalist.
Yeah. I think that's the only thing that has any staying power, really.
Yep. And the thing with the altcoin market is, since the last cycle, how many more altcoins have come out? How diluted is that market?
There's
now?
so damn many now.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. There's so many meme coins. Who gives a crap about the altcoins? We only believe really in the long term with Bitcoin. And I think the market's showing that, and I think we're correct.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the institutional markets are feeling the same way. They don't want anything to do with that crap. They're looking for Bitcoin. And I think, we're going to have to look at a few things. I know we did not talk about this before the podcast, but I did want to bring this up too. Michael Saylor's MicroStrategy is no longer MicroStrategy. It is now just strategy.
Well, they call it macro strategy. They've grown so much.
And it was kind of interesting too, because everybody was taking bets, because I think they had their earnings reports Thursday night, and everybody was just like, oh man, they're going to show such a huge profit gain. They didn't take the SAB accounting rules for Q4 of 2024, so they did not mark down their Bitcoin gains as a profit. I think they will for Q1, but so they actually showed a loss for Q4 of 2024 of like $3.07 or something like that as a miss, which I think is interesting, because I think they may have done it for tax reasons.
Maybe. I don't know. They've been just buying Bitcoin like crazy, and they buy it at the tops. But
yeah, they do.
They do. But here's the deal. Their play is, this is the craziest strategy ever. That's why they're getting rid of the micro. It's just a crazy strategy. It's the biggest strategy. It could be the most legendary one or the most failed one. Yeah. I think it's going to be the legendary one. That's my opinion, but
I tend to agree.
Time will tell.
I can't see, with all the momentum that we have, like what we talked about just a moment ago, I can't see that not carrying through here pretty soon. And when it does take off, it's going to take off like gangbusters. And I do think their Q1 earnings for 2025 will probably take in the SAB accounting principles. So they'll probably show a crazy earnings per share when that happens. Yeah. One of the other things too that we kind of talked about, and last time we recorded, DeepSeek had kind of tanked the tech industry. We've been kind of recoiling from that. We haven't seen a good recovery from that yet. Bloomberg was highlighting that gold is actually outperforming Bitcoin year to date.
Yeah. Year to date. It's what? February 7th? I mean, that's like 38 days into this year. And gold is outperforming Bitcoin. And I'm not a anti-gold person, but let's be real here. Gold has gone from like 2,700 to 2,800?
Yeah. It did get as high as 3,000, didn't it?
Did it get... Okay, you see, I haven't been paying attention to gold, so maybe it has.
Well, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I've got to go back in the charts and see, because I thought there was a time, maybe I am just talking craziness. I thought they're at all-time highs, but I don't know. Yeah, no, they are at all-time highs. They did not get to 3,000 previously. For some reason, I thought they had. 2887 was the high.
Well, here's the deal. Gold has gone up a little bit. Wait until like June. We'll see how things are going then.
Yeah.
Or let's say July 1st.
July 1st. We'll have to mark that and be like, all right, July 1st, how's gold doing year to date compared to Bitcoin?
You know, and I think it's going to do fine, but I think Bitcoin's going to blow it out of the water at this point. Now, when we get to December 31st, I'm not near as confident. So that's kind of how the cycle goes. We're going to be in that crypto craziness, at least, previously it's lasted until what, December? Sometimes it crashes in November. We'll see where it goes, but that's my take on it.
No, I completely agree with you, and I think you're right. But yeah, so it's been a crazy time. I think the tariffs kind of freaked some people out. I was talking with my Canadian coworkers, and they were kind of really jolted by it. Mainly because like their dollar tanked on the news.
Uh-huh.
The American dollar got strengthened, or the United States dollar, and the Canadian dollar just, I think, went to 64 cents or something like that to the dollar.
That's pretty rough.
Yeah, and that happened for them really fast. So this has been such a crazy time, and I feel sorry for the people that hate Trump, because he is releasing stuff as fast as he can. So it's like once they get their head wrapped around what they're angry at him about for one thing, he's already done 10 others.
Yeah, that seems to be a strategy. He's only been in office for like 3 weeks or something.
Yeah.
And as soon as they try to build up momentum from being mad at one thing, he's moved on to 2 or 3 or 5 other things.
Yeah.
So it's pretty well to watch.
He is all over the place. Yeah, and then one of the last things that we had here, and I don't think you'd heard about this either, is that Trump is actually going to be launching a Bitcoin ETF. Trump Media and Technology Group, where Donald Trump is a majority owner, has announced plans to launch a Bitcoin ETF called Bitcoin Plus. It's the first U.S. president to launch an ETF, and the ETF is part of TMTG's new financial tech brand, TruthFi, which also includes ETFs focused on American manufacturing and energy independence. The goal is to provide investment products that align with Trump's economic priorities and offer alternatives to ESG-focused funds.
Well, I can't disagree with providing an alternative to ESG funds, but we'll see how this goes.
And one other piece of news that I kind of wanted to talk about, and we'll touch on it briefly. BlackRock is announcing that they're going to move into the European market with their Bitcoin ETF as well.
That is very interesting.
I mean, the European markets and basically everywhere in the world had Bitcoin ETF funds already. We were kind of one of the last ones to come along. And so it's kind of interesting to see that, BlackRock's want to dip their toe in the pond over there on the other side of the world. So I don't know. I don't know anything as to why Bitcoin isn't like at $250,000 right now. But I think that change is going to come, and I think it's going to come pretty rapidly. More than likely, we'll see a crazy candlestick down, And it'll be such a flash when it happens. It's going to wipe a bunch of people out. And then I think we're going to take off.
I think that's kind of necessary. And that's the one thing I think that, all the ETFs being in here is kind of, it's not let us go crazy high, but it's also buoyed us from going the super, 30% dips.
Yeah.
Those aren't materializing this year or this cycle. So it's kind of just weird to watch, but we'll see how things go. I think you're right. We're in for more pain before we get those final gains.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, there was a lot of rumors about February being like a bullish month. I don't know if it will be this year. I mean, it's a good possibility. We still have a lot of the month left, but February flies by really fast. So it'll be kind of interesting to see. I did want to mention one other thing as well that we kind of talked about in the last episode. And I had talked about, people buying home miners, those types of things. And I think it's going to become more important as we continue to move forward. We kind of talked about this a little bit in the last episode, but with the centralizing of mining right now, especially with those corporations, if they get to where this price is stagnant and the competition is getting so fierce, some of them may end up having to turn off some of those miners. And if they do, the only thing, if you get 1 million people with at least a 1 terahash miner at home, you're able to help keep that market moving.
Mm-hmm.
So I got me a BitAxe. We kind of talked about some getting a hardware. I got a BitAxe and I actually put it at my own node. So I am now mining off my own node now.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, the chances of me hitting a block are slim to none. I think I've got like 1 in 254,000 chance in a day, but it's better than lottery odds.
Way better.
So I did want to throw that out there. Is there anything else you want to bring up right now?
That's it for me.
Yeah. Website right now, we do have the Elapal and we do have the Ledger if you're deciding to do your own self-custody. It actually looks like we got approval to get Trezor listed on there now too. So we'll get Trezors listed and Tangem. So
nice.
We will have 4 different wallets available to you all that you can get through our website, which is www.thebitbytepodcast.com. And it's under the deals tab. And you can always sign up for the newsletter.
Absolutely.
So thank you all for listening.
Bye.